Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me back.
Today we are immersing ourselves in the shattered, highly volatile world of Apocalyptica Arcanum.
We really are. We've got a massive stack of sources detailing the lore of this universe today.
We do, but we're narrowing our focus specifically to an in-world anthology known as the Copper Press.
Specifically, we're looking at Volume 3, right?
Right, because our mission for this deep dive is to understand how the fundamental laws of reality, magic, and human emotion all interact in this setting.
And to do that, we are unpacking a really haunting story from that volume called A Child's Plaything.
It's just such a perfect narrative to examine for this.
It really is because it isolates the core mechanics of the universe.
Yeah.
It takes all these massive world-altering concepts that define Apocalyptica Arcanum.
Like the pervasive danger.
Exactly. The pervasive danger and the way human thought physically reshapes the environment, and it shrinks them all down into a single, intimate case study.
We are looking at a localized event involving a 10-year-old girl in an apple orchard.
But the mechanical rules governing this event tell you literally everything you need to know about the terrifying reality of this setting.
Okay, let's unpack this. Since you are diving into this with us, you already know the baseline reality of Anno Meteorum.
You know, the 1886 meteor shattered the laws of physics.
Right. It shifted the planet's axis and completely rewrote the geographical map.
So we don't need to rehash the Merithic scale today.
No, or how the global economy relies on Shardisite to power Arcanotech airships and factories.
We know all that. What the Copper Press highlights so brilliantly here is Shardisite's most volatile, unpredictable property.
Its reaction to raw willpower.
That is the foundation of everything that happens in our source text today.
Because Shardisite functions as a physical anchor for human intent.
Right. Because of the meteor, the boundary between abstract emotion and the material world has entirely collapsed.
Belief is no longer just a cognitive function.
It's a physical force.
Yeah.
With mass and velocity.
And when you introduce Shardisite into the equation, your convictions and your fears are handed the tools to instantly reshape reality.
So we know the crystal reacts to pure intent.
But what does that actually look like when it falls into the hands of someone who has no concept of the rules?
That brings us to the hamlet of Willowmere.
And a 10-year-old girl named Imogen.
I want you to imagine the contrast here.
Yeah, most of the time when we look at Apocalyptica Arcanum, we see these sprawling, smog-choked industrial nightmares.
But Willowmere is the exact opposite. It is an agrarian quiet zone.
Apple rose wind chimes and just total isolation.
Until one night during a meteor shower, a fragment of the sky tears across the firmament and crashes into the northern ridgeline.
The town's adults react exactly the way adults in this universe are conditioned to react.
With bureaucratic paralysis.
Right. They just lock their doors and discuss waiting for a formal survey team to travel from Svalbard to handle the contamination.
Because they understand the dangers of shard blight.
And raw exposure. But Imogen doesn't have that context.
No. She grabs her tin lunchbox and picks up her wooden hobby horse.
Whose name is Trevor, by the way.
Guess Trevor. And she sneaks out into the pre-dawn cold.
She hikes across the apple orchards and discovers a crater glowing with a lurid green light.
Sitting right at the epicenter is a raw, massive Shardisite crystal.
And the anthology provides these incredible sensory details. Imagine you are standing on that ridgeline.
The air around the crater smells sharply of rain on copper.
And the stone itself emits a low hum that vibrates directly against the bones of your skull like a lullaby.
When she reaches out and touches it, she feels a radiant warmth flush up her arm.
Now consider the mechanics of what is happening here.
Right, we established that Shardisite is an anchor for willpower. The crystal is acting as a conduit, searching for a psychic signal to amplify.
And Imogen is 10 years old.
What's fascinating here is she bypasses the complex self-doubting filters of an adult mind.
Her desires are pure, unfiltered, and entirely lacking cynical constraints.
She doesn't hold contradictory thoughts about property values or radiation. She just wants things.
The Shardisite recognizes that purity of intent and locks onto it.
The manifestation of that intent is startling. Her mind wanders to a favorite toy she lost the previous spring.
An indigo marble with a metallic silver swirl.
She doesn't just wish she could find it. She envisions it.
And the green ambient light from the Shardisite condenses that exact concept into matter, dropping the marble right into her palm.
It's incredible. She then pictures her chipped porcelain doll back in her bedroom, imagining the ceramic face whole again.
And miles away, the crystal forces the broken pieces to fuse.
Then she thinks about being hungry and imagines a warm blackberry pie.
The air shifts and the pie simply materializes inside her tin lunch pail, steaming and fragrant.
From a lore perspective, this is a breathtaking violation of physics.
The stone is taking the abstract concepts of a child's imagination and forcing the physical universe to accommodate them.
It isn't teleporting the pie or the marble. It is synthesizing matter from psychic blueprints.
But that raises an immediate terrifying problem.
Yet Imogen is wielding an incomprehensible amount of power, but she possesses zero understanding of the thermodynamics behind it.
She has no idea what she is drawing from to fuel these miracles.
She only knows her internal world is suddenly dictating the external world.
So she fully leans into the discovery.
She turns her loft into a secret workshop, creating what the copper press calls impossible toys.
She imagines marching tin soldiers that never succumb to rust.
She builds poker kites that sprout actual leathery dragon wings once they catch the wind.
She even conjures a half-imagined cat that purrs rainbows and chases viridian moths that blink into existence just to be hunted.
It is a pure manifestation of childhood wonder.
But wonder is an incredibly fragile commodity in a world driven by desperate survival.
Very true. Imogen makes the completely understandable mistake of bringing a few of these toys down to the local harvest fair to sell.
And the regional demand explodes overnight.
Within weeks, inferior knockoffs flood the distant bazaars, but they lack the arcane spark of the originals.
Soon the entire province is buzzing about the mysterious toy right of Willowmere.
Letters flood the local post, offering massive fortunes for whatever arcane engine her family has supposedly discovered.
Which introduces the primary conflict of the story. The broader world encroaches on Willowmere in the form of a merchant named Mr. Pallor.
He's the archetype of the industrial vulture in this setting.
Wears velvet gloves and reflective spectacles.
He tracks the impossible toys directly back to Imogen's front door.
He corners her and her mother talking smoothly about how global fortunes pivot on the whims of playthings.
He demands access to this magic engine, fully intending to exploit it for mass production.
This confrontation is fundamentally a clash of psychic frameworks.
Pallor operates through the lens of extraction, commerce, and leverage.
While Imogen operates through imagination.
When she attempts to deflect, claiming she carves the toys by hand, Pallor sees right through the deception.
His entire worldview is built on identifying and seizing assets.
So he shadows her movements, and the very next morning he follows her up the ridgeline to the crater.
This sets up an incredibly tense climax.
Because when Imogen reaches the Shardisite, she notices a drastic change.
The crystal is dimming. The hum is sluggish.
She has been drawing on it daily, forcing it to overwrite reality, and the stone is straining under the immense psychic load.
But she knows Pallor is threatening her family's livelihood, so she places her hands on the crystal and tries a different approach.
She tries to wish for practical adult solutions. She focuses on fixing the leaky roof, ensuring her mother's happiness, and keeping their supper plates full.
And notice the mechanical failure that occurs here.
The stone struggles to process these requests. It gutters, spits out a single silver coin, and then the light fades significantly.
You have to look at why a magic pie works flawlessly, but a wish for financial stability fails.
The stone requires absolute, unwavering psychic pressure. A child's desire for a toy is a singular, focused emotion.
Adult anxieties worrying about mortgages, long-term happiness, or abstract economic safety are fractured.
They are laced with doubt, fear of failure, and complex caveats. The Shardisite cannot interpret a fractured signal.
It demands a unified intent.
And that failure leaves Imogen vulnerable, just as Pallor steps out from the tree line.
He realizes there is no factory, no engine, just a raw, highly valuable chunk of Shardisite.
And he is furious at the deception.
He scolds her for her childish fantasies and actually raises a pair of heavy iron pruning shears, advancing on a 10-year-old girl to take the crystal by force.
Think about the power dynamics of this moment. Pallor is driven by immense, overpowering greed.
A listener might wonder why his intense desire for wealth doesn't hijack the stone's frequency and override Imogen's control.
That is a fascinating point. Why doesn't the Shardisite just respond to him? He clearly wants the stone more than anything.
Because greed, especially in the context of commerce, is an abstract secondary emotion.
It relies on external systems, banks, markets, societal agreements.
Shardisite doesn't comprehend capitalism. It responds to primal, unfiltered states of being.
And as Pallor advances with the shears, Imogen is plunged into the most primal state possible.
Sheer, unadulterated terror for her own life.
She doesn't try to wish for money to pay him off. She doesn't try to summon a toy.
Her mind screams for a single, absolute concept.
She wants a wall between herself and this threat.
She demands safety. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The text describes the stone's reaction as violent literalism.
And it is brutal. The Shardisite doesn't conjure a quaint brick barricade. It violently erupts.
Massive, jagged spikes of green crystal explode upward from the frozen soil.
One of the crystalline spears drives directly through Palor's foot, pinning him to the earth.
Another column shatters the pruning shears right out of his hands.
And before he can even process the pain, the crystal rapidly grows outward, completely encasing him in a seamless, impenetrable coffin of translucent quartz.
He is trapped alive inside the stone. Imogen's psychic command for a barrier was executed with terrifying efficiency.
The crystal isolated the threat completely.
But the sheer magnitude of synthesizing that much dense matter in a fraction of a second pushes the already exhausted stone past its breaking point. Imogen is horrified by the violence she just unleashed. She mentally begs the stone to stop growing, and it does halt.
But the damage to the crystal structure is done. Thin fractures race across the massive shard, like frozen lightning glowing with a dangerous internal heat.
The physical toll of carving that much reality out of nothing breaks the anchor.
And the fallout of that structural failure is immediate and permanent.
That night, the fractured shard violently detonates. It doesn't level the town, but it releases its stored arcane energy in a silent, massive emerald aurora that streaks across the entire valley sky.
By the time the sun rises, the crater is just a pit of fused green glass.
Sitting dead center is the quartz coffin, with Mr. Palor still conscious, perfectly preserved, and utterly sealed inside.
The town discovers this nightmare the next day. The rescue attempts are completely futile.
They bring in heavy mining tools, they use firearms, they even bring in local alchemists to try and dissolve the quartz.
Nothing leaves so much as a scratch.
Eventually, the pragmatism of Anno Meteorum takes over. They realize they can't free him, so they simply build a fence around the crater.
They dub the site Palor's Folly and leave him there to serve as a morbid local landmark.
Furthermore, the destruction of the corona severs the connection to the magic Imogen had previously cast.
The impossible toys lose their animating spark.
The tin soldiers freeze in place and begin to rust.
The dragon kites turn back into brittle paper, and the porcelain doll fractures along its old fault lines.
The whimsical magic is entirely drained from the region.
But the author of the story leaves us with this incredibly twisted, layered conclusion.
Because while the toys died, Imogen's final desperate wish for her family's safety and comfort actually took root in the soil.
The dying breath of the stone fundamentally altered the local ecosystem to fulfill her command.
The environmental mutation is profound. The modest apple orchard along the ridgeline absorbs the arcane radiation.
Suddenly, the trees begin producing unnaturally massive, plump apples all year round, regardless of the frost.
And the fruit carries a faint, luminescent green hue. The magical resonance of Imogen's willpower seeped into the agricultural water table.
The effects of eating these mutated apples are surreal.
Townsfolk who consume them report highly vivid protective dreams where ranks of toy soldiers stand guard over their beds.
The children of Willowmere see vast, swirling visions of distant lands hidden in the clouds.
The local baker discovers that pies made from this fruit never cool down. They stay steaming and fresh for weeks on end.
Willowmere realizes they are sitting on a renewable miracle. They start exporting the fruit.
Travelers journey from massive industrial hubs like Svalbard and Atlantis, paying exorbitant prices just to experience the supernatural comfort of the harvest.
The town prospers wildly. Poverty is eradicated in Willowmere.
Imogen's family is financially secure for generations.
By every metric of the external world, Imogen won.
But the story forces you to sit with the psychological horror of her reality. To the tourists, the fruit is a delightful curiosity.
But to Imogen, every bite she takes tastes faintly of copper and tears.
That sensory detail just lingers with you. Copper and tears. She knows the cost of this paradise.
She understands the mechanics of her own town's prosperity.
She knows that inside the core of every single apple lies the psychic residue of a shattered stone and the suffocating panic of a man buried alive in glass.
The magic didn't disappear. It just dispersed into the food chain, waiting for the imagination of the next child, brave or foolish enough to tap into that lingering resonance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the broader world of Apocalyptica Arcanum, this story operates as a massive warning label for the entire setting.
Imagine waking up every day in a reality where your own thoughts are a loaded weapon.
In our world, if you harbor a dark thought or you feel a sudden spike of hatred, it stays locked safely inside your skull.
In Anna Meteorum, intent is secondary to sustained emotional pressure.
Imogen never intended to permanently mutate the town to agriculture, nor did she plan to entomb a man for eternity.
The Shardisite merely processed her raw emotional output and executed it without moral judgment.
This localized event perfectly models the global catastrophe that defines the deepest lore of this universe.
We just observed how one child's fleeting, concentrated terror permanently rewrote the geography and economy of a single town.
Now scale that mechanism up. What happens when an entire metropolis feels collective, suffocating despair?
What occurs when a continent of survivors shares a moment of absolute unifying dread?
This directly answers one of the biggest mysteries in the source material regarding the divine and demonic entities in this setting.
The forces known as the Choir and the Legion.
If you study the historical texts within the Apocalyptica Arcanum sources, a terrifying truth emerges.
The angels of the Choir and the demons of the Legion are not primordial beings.
They did not exist prior to 1886.
They are the direct, inevitable result of the exact same phenomenon we saw in Willowmere, just scaled up by millions of minds.
In the decades immediately following the meteor, humanity endured global starvation, environmental collapse, and endless territorial war.
Pain became a constant, ritualized state of being.
The sheer weight of that collective trauma had nowhere to go. It bled into a planet completely saturated with Shardisite dust.
The environment absorbed billions of psychic signals of terror, rage, and suffering, and it reacted with violent literalism.
The Legion is quite simply human suffering, given physical form.
The archdemons of rage, fear, and pestilence are not invaders from another dimension.
They are psychic scars left upon the earth. They congealed into conscious demonic entities because the intense emotional pressure of a dying human race forced the Shardisite to build them.
They are the ultimate manifestation of the quartz coffin, primal terrors synthesized into immortal matter.
But the converse is also true, which is where the choir comes from.
Wherever human belief reached outward toward healing unity or desperate salvation, the environment responded in kind.
Angels of love, joy, and courage manifested because communities dared to hold on to fanatical hope, and that hope crystallized.
The philosophical implication here is staggering.
The divine and infernal forces of this universe are not passing judgment on mortals. Mortals judge themselves.
The human race projected its own fractured psyche into the dust of the shattered world, and the world birthed gods to match that projection.
Imogen's wish in the apple orchard is a perfect microcosm of the exact mechanism that populated the heavens and the hells of Anna Meteorum.
So what does this all mean?
It completely reframes how you view the concept of belief. In this universe, having a disciplined mind isn't just a matter of mental health, it is a matter of public safety.
If you let your despair spiral out of control in a crowded city, you aren't just hurting yourself. You're actively contributing to the ambient atmospheric pressure that might summon a sorrow fiend right in town square.
You're holding a mirror up to the environment, and the environment is obligated to reflect your internal state back at you, often with lethal force.
The story of Imogen warns us that even the purest intentions, the desire for a lost marble or the wish for a wall to keep you safe, carry physical consequences that cannot be undone once the thought takes root in the material world.
It's a terrifying responsibility to have your thoughts be that loud.
So as we wrap up this dive into the copper press, I want to leave you with a lingering question to explore on your own.
Something to really sit with.
Think about the landscape of your own mind. Think about the times you have been consumed by a dark, obsessive thought that you couldn't shake.
Or consider a mundane moment, like a flash of an intense irrational anger when someone cuts you off in traffic.
You feel that heat in your chest, that sudden spike of hostility.
In the world of Apocalyptica Arcanum, that spike of anger wouldn't just dissipate when you took a deep breath.
It wouldn't stay safely locked in your eyes.
It would bleed into the soil beneath your feet.
It would accumulate in the air around you, mixing with the frustrations of everyone else on that road.
And eventually, if that collective anger built up enough sustained pressure, it would take a physical shape.
It would stand up and it would look back at you. If the monsters tearing apart the world are quite literally just reflections of our own unguarded minds, are we ever truly safe from ourselves?